This is what I looked like when I first used a computer to connect to another computer, and this is what it sounded like. Hi, I'm Mike Wise in Toronto, slightly older than I was then and using a much better computer. That is what things sounded like when I used my 300 baud modem on my Commodore 64 to connect to the early BBS scene in Toronto in the mid 1980s. Most of the time, though, I got busy signal. It wasn't until the end of my undergrad that I was first exposed to the early internet, Gopher sites, using it to access a then new magazine called Wired. And later, the Lynx browser. I remember showing my family this, saying, hey, this would be the future. It wasn't until about 1995 I was exposed to Mosaic, which was the first real World Wide Web browser, and I sort of saw the future. At work at CBC, I got involved in some early design work, helping out very peripherally with the first CBC.ca, but then later designing the first regional site for CBC Toronto. Now, as for using the web to build community, if we fast forward about 10 years, I had a front row seat with one of the early pioneers. About 2007, Facebook was just starting to grow. It had moved out of working with just focusing on US campuses. And I spearheaded a collaboration between the CBC, Facebook, and Student Vote. It was actually the first time Facebook had ever partnered with a media outlet anywhere in the world. Even the Globe and Mail took note of it at the time. The project was called the Great Canadian Wish List, and it was supposed to be about building an online community where Canadians could come together and pitch their best ideas for the future of the country and then vote for the ideas they liked the best.
What's your vision for Canada? Join in the conversation through the national partnership between CBC News, Facebook, and Student Vote.
And Facebook built the message boards for it with this sort of ranking system, almost like a Reddit. And Canadians had the ability to vote or share campaigns. In about a month, it attracted nearly 20,000 unique users. That was a pretty good number for 2007 on Facebook before Facebook really exploded. Now, to say we learned a few things about how online communities behave is an understatement. The idea was sort of built in that techno-utopian idea. We thought it'd be great. We'd appeal to our better angels out there and have all these great visions for the future of the country, where they wanted it to go. But we quickly encountered the realities of the internet circa 2007 and learned how networks form and grow as the project proved very popular among social conservatives. And now we saw the early ideas benefit from a first mover's advantage. Once they got out in the lead and the networks of support grew, they stayed out in the lead as awareness grew and other networks of support caught on with the winning wish, which was a desire to ban abortion.
Happy birthday, Canada. But before you blow out the candles, you might want to pause, because what appears to be our most popular wish may be divisive.
Now, from Facebook, I jumped on other social media platforms as they launched: Twitter, Google Plus, remember that, Instagram, Snapchat. But to be honest, I'm very measured in my use of them. I certainly lurk as a journalist, looking for stories, keeping eyes on conversations, but I'm actually quite critical of the amount of time my fellow colleagues and other journalists spend on social media, especially when it's not Twitter that pays their salary. When I teach students at Humber College, I liken journalists on Twitter to journalists hanging out at the local press club. Journalists love Twitter because they like to hear their own voice. They like to pontificate about things, but they assume the rest of the world is just as engaged as they are and just as enamored with Twitter as they are. And I think that really clouds their judgment sometime. Now, there was a time as a TV anchor that I thought I should be tweeting up a storm right before my broadcast, trying to draw attention to what was on at 11 o'clock, until I saw research from Nielsen that showed there was no correlation between Twitter engagement and TV news ratings. I also have some self-imposed restraints on these platforms. I try not to live my life on them or define it based on likes or retweets. Part of that is that when I first got my iPhone, I was totally obsessed with it as a gadget, but there was an incident where I was so distracted, my newborn daughter was almost injured.
This is what Mike considers playing with his daughter.
Hey. After that, I vowed to voluntarily limit my use, really become very mindful of the time I spend on technology and try not to see it get in the way of the time I spend with intentional contact with my family and others.